What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to the Baird podcast. In today's episode, I have a very special guest, my grandfather Bev Wasden, on the phone.
Hello.
So, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good right now because it's bedtime in my country.
Oh, nice.
And so I am laying flat on my back in bed.
Lucky you. I still have another podcast planned for tonight.
You have another contest planned?
Another podcast.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about how I actually make the podcasts because I've been working on them over quarantine, and obviously I can't see people and record with them, so I've been having to do some pretty interesting things to be able to talk to some folk, and you're no exception. So.
I see. And who else are you going to talk to tonight?
Well, not gonna be talking to anyone else tonight. I'm gonna be talking about how I make the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and about my process and stuff. But I guess that's kind of a side quest. We're here for you. So I guess.
Fair enough. What do you want to know about me?
Well, I know not all about you, but I know a lot more about you than everyone listening in. So where would you start telling us a little bit about yourself, I guess?
A little bit about myself.
Yeah.
Oh, where do you want me to begin?
I feel like maybe being a kid would be a good place to start.
Being a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that could take all night.
Yeah, well, obviously fast forward for some bits. So where were you born?
I was born in the Holy Family Hospital in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah, small town?
Prince Albert?
Yeah.
It's a major town.
Oh.
It's not the size of Winnipeg, but you would relate to the town the size of Brandon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that was there. And North Battleford, Prince Albert, is on one end of a railroad line that goes all the way to North Battleford, Saskatchewan.
Oh, wow.
And if you go along this railroad line, you come to a little town. It goes Prince Albert, Shell Lake, Mildred, Spiritwood, Bapalm, Glassbun.
So it sounds like it stops a little bit of everywhere, but what year would that have been?
Well, we were 7 miles south of that little town called Mildred.
Oh, yeah.
Way out in the boonies.
And what year was that?
That was in 1938.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute, all right.
So what was your childhood home like? Because I know you lived in Saskatchewan for about 9 years, and then you moved to Chemainus in BC, right?
This is true.
What was your home in Saskatchewan like?
Well, we first of all lived in a log cabin, which is my dad's homestead. The Canadian government wanted to settle that part of the world with people and farmers and so on, and my dad took a homestead, and I think if you did a section of land, which was 640 acres, for $1.
That is a lot of land. Wow.
That's pretty deal, too.
Yeah, no kidding. Pretty cheap. So,
Then I moved from there to a place called Platt's Place. And it was owned by a gentleman who had moved to BC and with his family. And it was let's see, there was a basement, a main floor, and a second floor. Yeah, it was a big house.
with your, the log cabin, I mean, I know you've told me about it before, but was that the house with the dirt floors?
Yeah, it had, part of it had dirt floor.
And, did you get your dogs when you were in Saskatchewan, or was that when you moved to BC?
Well, I had those dogs. Those dogs were my uncle's originally.
Okay.
That would be my mother's brother. And he went, I don't know where he went off to work somewhere and left the dogs with us, with my family.
Right.
And so those dogs stayed with me from the time I was born until I was 9 when I left for BC.
Oh, wow.
These two dogs were getting pretty old. One of them was blind in one eye. He had been kicked in the face by a horse
Oh, no.
and lost an eye.
What were their names?
Head and Puddles.
Well, that's cute. So, after, I mean, growing up on, like, small homes, well, not small, but like a homestead in Saskatchewan, then you moved to BC. Was that for work, or how come you guys moved there?
Well, the last 4 years we were on the prairies, there was a drought. And we did not get enough grain in 1947 for 1948 seed.
Oh,
We didn't have enough grain to plant next year's crop.
so you pretty much were forced to move.
Well, my dad said, that's it.
That's it.
I'm going to BC, and I'm going to buy a lunch bucket.
Oh.
And we sold everything.
Wow, that must have been a, well, I guess, pretty risky move for the time, leaving that all behind.
Well, but you see, my mother's stepmother and her father had moved to BC prior to, maybe a year previous to that, and they lived in Chemainus.
Right.
So we were going to an area where we had some acquaintances.
Oh, okay, so there'd be at least people to give you a hand if there was,
And say hi when we got there.
Nice. So then, once you moved to BC, what did your dad do for work?
Well, we arrived in Chemainus on a Thursday morning. And Friday morning, he went down to the sawmill to look for a job.
Okay.
And they wanted him to start at noon.
Oh, wow.
And he said, just hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I just got into town yesterday. Can I have another day to find a place to live and so on? And But anyway, he went to work on Saturday.
Wow, that seems pretty quick.
Yeah, and they worked all the mills and everything back at that time in 1947. They worked on half a day on Saturday.
Oh. So he worked a half day and then got to come home.
Yep.
Cool. So then I guess what was your first job? Did you follow
my first job?
Yeah, did you follow your father's profession in the sawmills, or where did you head?
My first job was paper route.
Oh, nice.
And so I had 20 to 25 customers. It was a country paper route.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like much until you think about the fact they're all spread out.
Yeah, I had to walk about 6 miles every night after school delivering my paper route.
6 miles?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That seems very far to walk.
That was you're quite right. It was very far to walk.
That's crazy. Walking 6 miles. So then, after paper routes, what did you do?
Well, I got a job in the sawmill, cleanup on Saturdays, and I went down and shoveled sawdust and cleaned up splinters of wood that had fallen off conveyor belts and so on.
Oh, that sounds kind of fun, actually.
Well, I don't know if it was fun, but it was...
It sounds kind of cool.
Well, it paid pretty good money. Every payday I got a check for about $40.
That's pretty good.
That's for... let's see, one... Well, it could be... I don't know that it was 4 days' work, but usually be about 3 days' work.
That's that's pretty good for, obviously, for the time. But so at that point, when you were a kid, what did you always want to do? Where did you see yourself going?
Well, I had the dream of going and working in I wanted to be an office worker. I didn't have any idea then about being an accountant or a timekeeper or anything.
You just wanted to work in an office building.
Work in an office.
Oh, that's cool.
All I knew about it.
That's really cool. I like how it's, well, now when you ask someone what they want to do, it's a very specific thing, or they don't know. I like how your goal was just where you wanted to work, not even what you'd be doing. That's kind of cool.
Well, it was different.
So once you ended up in an office, what were you actually doing?
Well, the first job I got in the office was the office boy at the sawmill where my father worked. And I delivered the mail to all the offices in this humongous sawmill plant. And this was the largest lumber producing plant in the world.
Do you remember what it was called?
It was the Victoria Lumber Company at that time, and then it was bought out by H.R. McMillan.
Oh, okay. So when it was still the original mill, Was it at that point electric or steam?
Was all steam.
Oh, cool.
And the steam, they ran the steam turbines, and they had a tremendous big power plant where they made electricity because they had to have power for various projects. You couldn't run everything on steam.
Well, you'd also need like lights and everything, right?
Well, that's exactly right.
So, with all the sawdust and stuff you'd collect, would that end up getting burned? I know it's kind of like a oddly specific question, but would that end up getting converted into like steam power?
That would all go into the power plant, and it would be burnt in the big furnaces.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's where they made their steam.
Right. So they used wood to make steam and then steam to power the saws as well as like generators for electricity.
Yep.
So they're basically self-sufficient.
They were well, I don't know if they were self-sufficient, but they made a lot of their own electricity.
That's really cool. So so after like working in the sawmill and being like the office boy, what did you do after that?
Well, I was getting fed up walking up 327 stairs twice a day, delivering mail to the foreman's office.
I can imagine that.
And so I was good friends with the secretary of the manager, and she was like a mother. I would talk to her and grumble about this and grumble about that. I said, I'm going to quit. No, you're not, she would say. And she was like my boss. She wasn't my boss,
but she was at the same time.
Yeah, she was like a mother.
Well, that's cool.
She told me what to do.
That's pretty funny. After so I mean, obviously like you were trying to get out of that job, but like what age would you have been by this point?
Oh, 18. Oh, maybe 22, 20, 21.
All right. So had you gotten your first car by then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, I had my first car.
What was your first car?
It was a 1949 Merc.
Oh, cool.
This was it was rounded from the front windshield all the way down to the back bumper.
Pretty aerodynamic. Do you remember how much it ended up costing you?
Oh, about $900, I think.
Whoa. For like the full car and everything.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Well, it was crazy, but it was a lot of bucks back then.
Yeah, I guess that's true. A lot's changed.
But it was a four-door sedan.
Oh, nice.
And the fellow that had it before me, he put lowering blocks.
He put the like axle over the leaf springs or something?
Yeah, instead of the sitting on top of the axle. He hung them under the axle.
Oh, so it was lowered. Cool.
So it was lowered.
Wow, how fancy.
Oh, it was fancy. And the guy that owned it before was he had worked in the Ford Motor in Duncan, and the thing was pretty hot car. There wasn't a guy or a car that I ever met that could pass me.
That's awesome. You had fast car right away. So, I mean, I don't really know much about like the laws and stuff in BC. When did you like get that car?
When did I get it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I had it when I was the office boy and in the sawmill. So I would be maybe 20,
Oh yeah.
19, 20.
And I guess, I mean, covered like work and stuff. At what point in like where in all of this did you meet Grandma?
Oh, that was an interesting story.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, there was a group of us young people that went to this. We were all church-going kids,
Right.
and these two girls that were Grandma's friend, they decided that they arranged a New Year's Eve supper.
Okay.
And this supper was at a place called the Diner's Rendezvous.
All right.
And it was a Chinese food place.
All right.
And I don't know how many people were there, but there must have been, well, if there was two, there were 20 at least. But anyway, we went and me being a fellow who hadn't traveled much, and I was out for the prairies and Chinese food. I had never eaten Chinese food. So anyway, my brother and I, we had chicken. Everybody else had whatever.
Right.
And then when the supper was over at the Rendezvous, we went to the church. And we had what they called a watch night service. Now, you might understand it as a candlelight service.
All right.
And then when that was over, we went downstairs and had coffee and goodies and so on and so forth. And I was sitting at the far end of the auditorium. There was a big, long wooden pew that went across the whole length of the lower auditorium, and I was sitting on one end, and one of my buddies was sitting on the other end, and he, as usual, was talking a mile a minute, and I was sitting on the other end trying to listen to all of what he had to say. And I had one leg up on the pew, and I had my arm up on the top of the back of the pew. And then all of a sudden, he stopped talking.
Okay.
So I looked over at him to see what had caught his interest, and he was sitting there with his mouth open, and he was looking up at the front of the auditorium, there was a group of young ladies that had wandered into the auditorium, and they had gone up onto the platform, and they were talking away. And so anyway, I finally figured out what he was looking at, and I looked, and he said, man, he said, would I ever love to have a date with that blonde? And do you know what I told him?
What's that?
I said, you keep your grubby little meat hooks off. That's mine. I had never seen the lady before. But anyway, he got the message, and he never did try to date her. But anyway, after we had coffee and goodies, we went to an all-night New Year's party at the home of the two girls that arranged the banquet thing at the rendezvous, and Grandma was there. And then New Year's Day evening, we went skating.
Oh, nice.
And she was my date.
Aww.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. That's really cute. So, I mean, how long? Well, I guess that would have, you said that would have been like 20s-ish. When was it, like what year did you guys end up getting married?
In 1961. I was 23.
Here's the real test. What day?
And she was 20, just about 21.
Here's the real test. What day was it?
Pardon?
Here's the real test. What day was it?
It was on a Friday.
Like the date, though.
June the 16th, 1961.
Do you remember the time?
7 o'clock.
Aw. That's really cool that after all this time you still remember all those details.
Well, you know, some things you don't forget.
Yeah, and I mean, that's probably a pretty important one to not forget.
Yeah, I have never forgotten that day. And I've never forgotten the night that I first laid eyes on the lady, too.
Aw. Well, we are already almost at half an hour, so if you want to hang on for a second, I will end the episode. It was really nice talking to you.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you, and I really do. And the other part of the podcast that you did, that was fun too.
Yeah, that was fun. I hope to try and use some of it, because there is some good content before my computer started having issues. But I guess that pretty much brings us to the end of the episode. That was all my questions for you, and thanks for being a good sport and coming on the show.
Hey, I enjoy doing things like this.
Well, I'm glad. Oh, I almost forgot. I heard the other day you were writing starting a memoir. Do you want to talk a little bit about that before the end of the show?
Oh, me? I'm writing my memoirs?
Yeah. You want to talk a bit about that, or?
Well, we can do that if you wish.
Sure, because I mean, if people enjoy listening to your stories on my podcast, maybe they'll enjoy your memoir.
Well, it starts out when I was just a little guy on the homestead, when living in a log cabin,
Right?
and talks about the time that when it was lambing season, and we had a late snowfall, and my dad got me up to go with him, and we went down to the barn and harnessed the team of horses, and the hay rack was still on the sleigh, so we went out to the field where the sheep was, and you looked out over the field, and there was probably half a dozen places where there was a column of steam coming out of the snow.
Oh, no.
It had snowed overnight, and these sheep had given birth to their babies, and so we drove around with the sled and the horse, and we had picked the sheep up and put her on the sleigh, and then he would pick the lamb up and
Aw.
give the
It's,
lamb.
it's obviously good that you got there before the snow.
Well, hey, the snow was about 1.5 feet deep.
Oh, so I guess you didn't really outrun it, but
No, it snowed that much overnight.
So to what point, is your memoir going to go to, like, present day kind of thing, or like how far along do you plan on going with it?
Well, I've gone all the way out to BC, and riding my bicycle to school with my brother on the not on the handlebars, but on the bar between the seat and the handlebars, you know?
Yeah, like the down tube.
Yeah, the bar that runs between the seat and the part that holds the front forks.
I cannot imagine that ended well.
No, that did not end very well one day. We did it for quite a while, but this one morning he stuck his foot in the front spokes.
Oh no!
In the forks, and it stopped the front wheel like bang.
Can imagine it stopped in quite a hurry. Yeah.
Yeah, and he went over and out over the basket, and he landed on his forehead on the concrete, and I went over and scraped my knees and hands, and
Oh no!
oh man,
That would have not been the most fun. But
we limped the last half a mile to school.
oh. Well, I quite enjoyed doing this with you tonight, and I feel that there are plenty more stories. I feel we should do this again.
Well, I'm game, no problem.
Well, I'll be sure to be in touch, and we'll try and work something out. But it was really nice to talk to you.
Nice talking with you, and you have a good night's rest. You've been working too hard today.
Nonsense. It's only 10 o'clock here. I still have one more podcast to shoot. It was I guess that pretty much concludes the episode. I had a really nice talk with you, and hopefully you'll come back at some point. If you liked what you heard in today's episode, make sure to, well, give it a thumbs up, and yeah, I guess show someone that might like this. Anyways, that's all for today. Bye.